Good evening, everyone. Hope you had a fantastic day. I'm Scott Mulchin with the $1 Million Landscaper. I have Ryan Reber of BusyBusy again on, and we are going to be talking about equipment tonight. It's probably one of our top highest expenses in our business besides labor. And it's so important to track it. Just like we track our labor, we need also be tracking our equipment. So welcome, Ryan. Appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, like I said, equipment is so expensive, and we need to be tracking it. Whether it's just using it for an hour or two, or if it's out on job all day long, we need to be tracking it. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And it's always a fun conversation for us to have because our founder and CEO Isaac Barlow, he was originally came from the excavation space, and so he was there, needed something that was better to track his time to get it from the field to the office, and so we originally are we are a time tracking and equipment tracking app, and it's exactly what you just described. It's one of the most expensive things on the job site, and I talk to contractors all day long who talk about the issues of trying to track that on a paper time card, or the issues of missing that machine hour that they're trying to bill out to a client or a GC, and the negative effects that has for them.
Yeah. One thing I see a lot just after speaking to a lot of people is they're not even really thinking about charging equipment. They're not tracking how much time they're using their equipment. They just don't feel it's important. And I really see as a huge loss in your business. You're not tracking and not charging for it. You're losing thousands of dollars a year. I actually had a coaching call the other day with a person, and I don't remember exact numbers, but the truck was just a used truck they bought years ago. It was like $10,000. And just the fuel alone this year is going to cost them like $7,400 roughly
Jeez.
and if you're not charging for that, that's just money out of your pockets.
Yeah.
And so I like stressed to him, like, this is just one vehicle. You have multiple vehicles, multiple pieces of equipment. If you're not charging for that, you might as well just give your customers the money, like just pay them for the job, because you're
That's
just,
right.
it's not worth it. So, and it's so important to track it. And sometimes it's very hard to track it because our team members are like so busy. They don't want to do this types of stuff.
Mhm.
So it's nice to have some kind of software like BusyBusy to aid in that, to make it easier.
Absolutely. And it is, I talked to companies where there was a company I talked to where they were trying to track it and talking about, like you just described, the cost of missing an hour when they're trying to bill for that machine hour, where it costs them a couple $100 an hour to run that piece of equipment. If you look at the expenses, the fuel, everything that goes into that piece of machinery, that if the guy's trying to fill out his paper time card on Friday on how many hours he used the equipment on Wednesday, if he misses an hour, the effect that has, or if he misses an hour every day, the effect that has on the business and the money left on the table is extremely significant.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, besides the cost, is there any other reason why we need to be tracking equipment? And
There's there's multiple things. I mean, for sure, making sure that you're billing for it, whether, like you mentioned, whether you're billing for that machine hour, or at the very least being able to estimate and put it into the bid, right? Even if you're not going to track the machine hour to bill out each machine hour, but knowing what it's going to cost you to put that in and estimate for it. We also have companies use BusyBusy though to track it for just maintenance, because it pulls all of the hour meter when it was last used, where it was. So just that kind of information that allows them to use it for even just maintenance.
yeah, that's a huge thing there too. And if you're not maintaining it, it's going to cost you more money because it's probably going to break down at some point. So that's a great point there.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else too, like when you have somebody running a piece of, like, say, a skidster or dozer, or depending on whatever they're operating, um, is it important to kind of track that with the operator too, to see how efficient they are on using that piece of equipment?
Absolutely. Well, it's uh, and Isaac says this all the time. It's you can't improve what you don't measure, right?
Mhm.
So you have no idea how long that employee is on that piece of equipment and how efficient he is on that piece of equipment. So if he was on that equipment for 4 hours, but the hour meter he only used it for 2 hours, well, that's a 50% efficiency. That's a huge waste of time. So being able to track that, to measure it and say, oh, hey, if we do X, Y, and Z, that efficiency goes from 50 to 75%. Suddenly we're having a 25% increase in efficiency, and we're getting the job done faster. We're costing ourselves less money. And in fact, I'll show my screen as we continue to have this conversation here and see if I can't pull this up, because it's really easy to do. And can you see my screen okay?
Yep.
Perfect. And can you see my app as well?
Yeah.
So, and exactly what you just described. So as an employee, I just come in here, I hit click clock in. So I'm going to grab the project I'm on, and then like we just talked about. So for example, if I'm doing some grading, and I'm going to grab, for example, let's just say this skidster, it's going to grab my location. I'll hit clock in. So I'm clocked in. So now as I work with this piece of equipment, it's going to track all of this time for me. I can leave a note or a description. I can go on break. I can switch from job to job or equipment to equipment. So for example, if I'm done grading and I'm going to go do some trenching, I'll even change my equipment. Here's asking me to update that hour meter. So I'll just update that here, submit that. I'll grab my next piece of equipment, and then I'll go ahead and move on. And then even as I clock out here, we have a couple of different questions. So especially for companies that are having employees use pieces of equipment, especially when there's different worker comp codes involved, makes a ton of sense to capture that non-injury and what they're doing, so you're not paying that highest rate, and you're also capturing those non-injuries for those employees. My time accurate, and again, it's going to ask me to update that hour meter. I'll go ahead and update that, and then I'll go ahead and hit submit. And then what's really cool is as I come over here to the dashboard and come into the equipment, so this is what I was talking about. So I can come in here and I'll just search, for example, that skidster. So I can see where its last location was. And I've talked to a number of contractors who've lost equipment. And I'm sure, as Scott, you have as well, where it's going to grab the GPS off the employee's phone, where that equipment was last clocked in, what job, what were they doing with it. And then this is where I talked about, again, it just gives you all this insight and information. So you don't have to go texting or asking employees, but you can see where it was used, what the hour meter's at, when it was last updated. And so again, a lot of companies will use that specifically to look at, hey, when the hour meter hits this, we need to do this maintenance on it.
Mm-hmm. That's huge right there. The one thing I will say is, like, anybody's watching this, look how short of time it was for him just to clock in, clock out. You know, when we tell this to our teams, like, hey, you need to start using this app or program to start tracking. They're like, it just takes so much time. He literally just did it in like 10 seconds. So it doesn't take long. It's very simple to actually do and implement in your business. So it's one thing I really like about BusyBusy.
It's a fun conversation to have, because like you described, a lot of companies have that concern is it's too much time, my employees aren't going to do it. In fact, I was talking to a contractor the other day that he was calling back. He had talked to us previously, didn't go with us, and then it was probably 2 years ago, and he decided to go with BusyBusy because the employee or superintendent he was concerned who wasn't going to use BusyBusy called him up after leaving him, starting his own business, called him up because they were still good friends and said, hey, you've got to check out this software I'm using. It's fantastic. So he immediately called us up, was like, I should have done it 2 years ago. I'm doing it now. Where it's a 2-second process, and it gives you that automatic visibility into what's happening on the job. And it's really quick and easy. And so what I did is I just came down here, so from equipment to our activity report, so I can look at each project and see how much time we're spending on each project. And what's really cool about this on the equipment aspect is, so for the Tyler Avenue job, I can come in here and I can look and break down what pieces of job for this, the date range I have is for the pay period. So I can look at what equipment we used, and then I can even click in here anywhere and just see, okay, skidster, who used it, what days did they use it, how much time was spent on it, what cost codes were they using. So it gives me all that information. Makes it really easy. A lot of companies will even just bill right from this report, especially if they are billing for those machine hours.
That's awesome. Well, the other thing too is you can use it even just for job costing, just at the end to make sure you're
Mhm.
charging enough. So when you're doing your estimate in the future, you can look back and say, "Oh, I had a project that was similar in size, and was using the similar equipment.
Yep,
Well, we use this equipment for X amount of hours. Oh, I can bid this job, the same way, or I have to bump it up because I didn't charge enough, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of different features you can use by just being able to track your equipment.
exactly, and that's exactly what companies use it for. Is they'll invoice right from it, or exactly what you just described is um, being able to just use it as a historical review to make sure they're not losing money and making money on that next project. Um,
Yeah.
Next thing here is that machine versus operator report. So I can come in here, and again, I'll just look up that skidster, and I can view. So today it was used for 7 hours, machine hours were 6 hours. So I had an 89% efficiency, almost 90% efficiency on this piece of equipment. So that's awesome. That's something to be excited about. I can click into it and I can view. Again, it's just going to get more granular, so I can see the detail. I can click fully into it. I can see, okay, I'm the one that used it. Here's my updating on the machine hours. So it gives me all that information so I can tell what's going on that project.
Well, that's right there is alone is awesome because you can start seeing, okay, I had this crew member, he's did real good on this job and this job, and I can start questioning him why, what's the difference? Is he just slacking off, or maybe he needs more training on something? Is that something you can work on to improve their ability to operate it faster, or did he run into problems that you just didn't foresee? There's a lot of things you can use this busy for.
Absolutely. Yep. And just wanted to show another example here. So that Cat 308, I got a 50% efficiency. So yeah, exactly what you just described. And if you have an employee that's on this type of equipment, on this type of jobs running at a 75% efficiency, and you have suddenly another employee that's running at 50%, it gives you that insight immediately where you can then drill in and figure out what's going on and how to bump that efficiency up.
I can even see like how you can tie in like a bonus system to this or incentive program. If you continue to operate at 75% or above, we'll give you so much money or something like that. There's a lot of different features you can use there.
Absolutely. Well, especially if you look at the cost of them not operating at 75%, um, the cost for them and that piece of equipment. So yeah, makes a ton of sense.
That's awesome. So just a quick question on this equipment. Is it very time consuming to put all this equipment in there when you're setting this
It's
up?
it's not. It's really easy. So we have a huge list that they can just type in and pick from if they have equipment that's already in our database.
Okay.
And then if it's not, so in the management list here, they would just come into equipment. So if it doesn't exist, if they can't search it up, they would just come create it. If they can't find the make, model, or year they're looking for, they can just click right here and input it.
Okay.
So it's a pretty simple process. Once they have it in, it's in there forever. So it's depending on how many pieces of equipment they have, it could take them 10 minutes up to maybe a couple of hours. But again, it's a one-time process, and then you have it in there forever.
I love that. Just trying to think if there's anything else we can add in there on that, but I think that's pretty simple as far as putting all your equipment in there. It's like anything else. Any software you use, any app you use, you're gonna have to spend a little bit of time to learn how to use it and to add in all your information. But once it's done, it's done. You can roll
Yep.
with it and move on.
And it's we have an onboarding process where if a company decides to go with BusyBusy, we'll have an onboarding specialist work with them to put in all of that information, the equipment, the employees, the jobs, cost codes, whatever specifically that company needs. So it's a handheld experience to ensure their success.
Mhm.
Because even worse than having to take a little time and input something like equipment is trying to do it on your own, where it's taking longer than it should because you don't have someone walking you through it.
Mhm. Sure. So, guys, I really encourage you to really start looking at your equipment and make sure you're charging for it. And using an app like BusyBusy just makes it that much easier. So, I encourage you guys to at least go check it out. Actually, I'll put the link up here real quick. But yeah, you need to be tracking it. You need to be charging your customers for it. And this just makes it that much easier having a way to have your crew simply clock in, clock out, put in whatever equipment they're using. So if they're using the saws, you can put that in there. If they're using, skid steer, tractors, mowers, so any kind of crews could use this, right?
That's a great clarification, because I was showing mostly for what an installation landscaping crew would use, but we have companies that want to know how long for maintenance, how long they're on a mower, or how many employees are on a mower, and how long it takes to mow that specific piece of property, as well as weed eating, blowing, edging. So we have companies use it for both, where they want to break down and see how long it takes them to accomplish the job and how long it takes to do each piece of it. And again, it makes it really easy for estimating that next job, and for even billing the current customers they have.
That's cool. One thing I'll say, like in our business, we used to be old school. Literally, the guys would go out there, they would write on a piece of paper how long they would run that skid steer mower, whatever it was, and we had to track it. But honestly, we start looking at the time's actually accurate. They're going to put in usually to the 10-minute or 15-minute mark. They're not necessarily writing down to the minute, so you can't really get true accurate job costing without having some kind of app like this where it tracks it down to the minute.
Yep, agreed. And it
Um,
is
oh,
the I think it's the Bureau of Labor or something like that. They'd done a review, and it was that field employees round their time 45 minutes a day, and it's not even necessarily on an egregious level, but it's like you described. It's they uh, they get the job at 8:15 and they write 8 o'clock, or they take an extra little bit for lunch and they say it was 30 minutes, where that time adds up,
mhm.
especially if you're on a job for a bit. So it's really helpful getting that accurate job costing to know what the true costs are, and being able to make sure that you're fairly compensated for those.
Yeah, and I know just from our business, we've had crews that were dishonest. They weren't writing things down, and they were just saying that they're there. They weren't there. Um, we've gone through all those things, and having something like this where BusyBusy can actually use the GPS on it to make sure they're there. Actually, honestly, we're dealing with that right now. We have a crew that we're kind of questioning whether they're at some job site when they said they were. So having something like this that tracks the GPS would kind of save it and give us some peace of mind.
And it's always a fun that is a fun conversation, because it's I always look at it as it's an improvement on culture, because rather than, like you're describing, it's a question marker. It's going to have to be a question of, hey, we think you might be telling us you're working longer than you are. It's easier to go to it. Busy is that mediator of, hey, I'm noticing you're clocking in at home, or this is going on. Like, what's going on? How do we adjust this? Get it fixed. And if we can't, then that's also a different discussion. But it takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah, no. One thing I did see on your website, you actually integrate with Vision Link, correct? You mind sharing a little bit about that?
We do, yeah. So we integrate with Vision Link. So for companies that have Vision Link, or are looking to get Vision Link, it allows you to tie it in. And so on BusyBusy, what you can do is you can see, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but like the fuel level. So all of the
Mhm.
insights Vision Link brings for your piece of equipment is now going to be in BusyBusy as well. So rather than just seeing the hour meter, the project it was on, who used it, and the time spent on each project, it's also going to give you all of that data that VisionLink is capturing as well.
Mhm. Now, I do think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Vision Link's more for like larger pieces of equipment. So like could be your skid steers and excavators and many, but not necessarily mowers. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that would be my understanding as well. That's what
Yeah.
I would say, is it's more for those rather than a mower.
Yeah, yeah, but still a cool feature to have the ability on. So
Absolutely.
let us know, guys, if you have any questions. Post them in the comment section. We'd love to help get them answered for you. But again, it's so important to track your equipment. Make sure you're charging your customers for it, because again, like we said earlier, it's just coming out of your profits if you're not. And
Yep.
like, I see it all the time. People don't charge for it. What I tell people is like, okay, if you went and rented that piece of equipment, would you charge a customer? Well, yeah. Well, how's that any different than if you buy that piece of equipment? You need to be charging
Yeah,
your customers for it. So it makes it so much easier having an app like this.
completely
Anything else?
agree.
Anything
Uh,
else?
I think you covered it. Yeah, check us out in the App Store, download it, look at it. We do have a free version of the app where if you want to just check it out, go check it out at the App Store or Google Play Store, and correct me if I'm wrong, but also tune in.
Yep.
Isaac, our CEO, is going to be on the podcast dropping this Friday.
Yeah, it is a great interview. I'm excited to have this come out this Friday. And then we're actually going to have him on in a few more weeks too. He'll be on and we dive into company culture and stuff. So it was a great episode. I'm really looking forward to listeners getting out there and hearing it. So all right.
Absolutely.
All right, Ryan. Well, I appreciate you hopping in here. I know you've been a busy man, been busy all day. So I appreciate you taking a few minutes to hop in here and share a little bit about BusyBusy and what it can do.
Absolutely. Thanks, Scott.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Hope you have a great night. See you guys.
See ya.